ओम अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानञ्जनशलाखया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजन सहितं कृष्ण चैतन्य देवं श्रीराधा कृष्ण पादान् सहगण ललिता श्री विशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण प्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्री श्रीमद् भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनेति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। गुरवे गौरचंद्राय राधिकाय तदालये कृष्णाय कृष्ण भक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। आनंद लीलामय विग्रहाय हेमावदिव्य छवि सुंदराय तस्मै महाप्रेम रस प्रदाय चैतन्य चंद्राय नमो नमस्ते। चैतन्य चंद्राय नमो नमस्ते। चैतन्य चंद्राय नमो नमस्ते। हरे कृष्ण। So let me share my screen. Can someone confirm if the screen is visible?
Yes, Prabhu, we can see.
Thank you. So this morning we are reading from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antilila, chapter 20, text 84 through 91. Text 84. ये किछु वर्णिलु सेह संक्षेप करिया लिखिते न पारे न तबु राखिया चेना लिखिया. Translation: what I have described was left aside by Vrindavan Das Thakur, but although he could not describe these pastimes, he gave us a synopsis. Okay, I'll just go back. चैतन्य मंगल ते हो लिखिया छे स्थाने स्थाने से वांछा शुने से परम प्रमाणे. In this book named Chaitanya Mangal, Chaitanya Bhagavad, he has described these pastimes in many places. I request my readers to hear that book, for that is the best evidence. Sangshepa kahilu vistara nayai kathane Vistariya Veda Vyasa Kariba Varnane. I have described the pastimes very briefly, for it is impossible for me to describe them in full. In the future, however, Veda Vyas will describe them elaborately. Chaitanya Mangale iha likhiya che sthane sthane satya kahe na aghe vyasa kariba varnane. In Chaitanya Mangal, Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur has stated in many places the factual truth that in the future, Vyasadeva will describe them elaborately. Chaitanya Lilamrita Sindhu Dugdab Chaitanya Lilamrita Sindhu Dugdabdi Samana Trishna Rupa Jhari Bhari Teho Kaila Pana. The ocean of nectarian pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is like the ocean of milk. According to his thirst, Vrindavan Das Thakur filled his pitcher and drank from that ocean. Chaitanya Lilamrita Sindhu. Oh, we just finished this, I think. 89. Tara jhari sheshamrita kichu more dila, tate ke bharila peta trishna mora gela. Whatever remnants of milk Vrindavan Das Thakur has given me are sufficient to fill my belly. Now my thirst is completely satiated. 90 and 91. Ami ati kshudra jiva pakshi ranga tuni seiyache trishnaya piye samudrera pani taiche ami ekakana chuni lulilara ei drishtante janiha prabhura lilara vistara. Translation. I am very insignificant living being, like a small red-beaked bird. Just as such birds drink the water of the sea to quench its thirst, so I have touched only a drop of the ocean of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. From this example, you may all understand how expansive are the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Shri Gauranga Mahaprabhu ki jai. Hare Krishna. So basically this morning, we are reading from the Antilila of the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. And this is that section. This is the last chapter of the magnum opus that Srila Kaviraj Goswami has gifted this world. And in this section, we find it's basically the 6 Ashtakam prayers in the first half. And in the last half, the author, that is Kaviraj Goswami, is giving us a summary of everything that he has described in Adi, Madhya, and Antya. So basically, in this section, we find that Kaviraj Goswami is expressing his inability. He's expressing his humility, that he himself, after writing the whole of Chaitanya Charitamrita, he himself is surprised as to how did he even do it. And in the later verses, we find that in every verse, he will give a summary of the whole chapter. Like he will give us, in one verse, he starts giving the synopsis of Madhya-lila chapter 1. In another verse, he gives the synopsis of Madhya-lila chapter 2, and so on and so forth. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita at this point is completely completed by the author, and a brief summary is being described. But we find that even before Kaviraj Goswami gave us this magnum opus, in fact, Kaviraj Goswami is the last personality to gift us. Even before Kaviraj Goswami, Swarup Damodar Goswami's diary was there. Murari Gupta's Kadacha was there. Lochan Das Thakur's work was there. Vrindavan Das Thakur's work was there, as we see in this section. And we find that Lochan Das Thakur, he very beautifully says that anyone who doesn't worship my Nitai, Lochan bole mora Nitai, jebana bhajilo, janiya shuniya se atma ghati hoilo. Lochan Das Thakur, he says, Lochan bole mora Nitai, anyone who doesn't worship my Nityananda Rai, anyone who doesn't worship my Nityananda Prabhu, what happens to them? Lochan bole mora Nitai, jeba na bhajilo, janiya shuniya se atma ghati hoile. Oh, that person who is not worshipping Nityananda Prabhu, knowingly, unknowingly, he is committing suicide. He is just stabbing himself by not worshipping Nityananda Prabhu. So, of course, this doesn't apply to us, because I think all of us in the call have at some point worshipped Nityananda Prabhu. But this is for those people who are averse to Nityananda Prabhu. Either they don't know, or even after knowing, they are not worshipping Nityananda Prabhu. So Lochan Das Thakur, he's making this point. And likewise, Vrindavan Das Thakur, he also very beautifully, he says, Yadi se amar nitai surabadi jaye, Vrindavan Das Thakur very emphatically he says, even if my Nityananda Prabhu enters a liquor shop, very strong statement. He says, even if my Nityananda Prabhu enters a liquor shop, still the lotus feet of my Nityananda Prabhu will be worshipable. Very strong statement. Of course, only Vrindavan Das Thakur can say this. So we see the same point that Lochan Das Thakur and Vrindavan Das Thakur are making, that they are emphasizing the glories of their worshipable Lord Nityananda Prabhu. Actually, it's a known fact that Lochan Das Thakur and Vrindavan Das Thakur, even though they are Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's associates, their Ishta, their worshipable Lord is Nityananda Prabhu. They belong in the camp of Nityananda Prabhu. So it is for this reason we find it is not surprising, it's not baffling to see that Lochan Das Thakur, his worshipable Ishta is Nityananda Rai, and Vrindavan Das Thakur, his Ishta, his worshipable Lord is also Nityananda Rai. And now both of them, when they write commentaries about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, both of them give the name of that book as Chaitanya Mangal. Lochan Das Thakur also writes a book and gives the name as Chaitanya Mangal. Vrindavan Das Thakur also writes a book and gives it the name as Chaitanya Mangal. So it's not difficult to understand, because both are followers of Nityananda Prabhu. Both have the same mood. Both have the same proclivities. Both have the same inclinations. And naturally, both ended up giving the same name of the book. Very rare we find that two authors are writing a book and they give the same name. But here in this instance, we find. So when Vrindavan Das Thakur, when he gets to know that Lochan Das Thakur has given the name as Chaitanya Mangal, Lochan Das Thakur was older in age than Vrindavan Das Thakur. So when Vrindavan Das Thakur gets to know this, Vrindavan Das Thakur decides to change his name, change the name of his book. From Chaitanya Mangal, he changes the name of his book to Chaitanya Bhagavat. So that is the history. Earlier it was Chaitanya Mangal, but keeping Vaishnava etiquette in the forefront, Vrindavan Das Thakur ends up changing the name of his book from Chaitanya Mangal to Chaitanya Bhagavat. And very interesting to note that Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur, just as far as statistics are concerned, when Vrindavan Das Thakur wrote the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Vrindavan Das Thakur was in his late 20s or early 30s. This is what an Acharya can do in his late 20s or early 30s. He ends up writing Chaitanya Bhagavat. And so much so that in one class I was hearing His Grace Gauranga Prabhu was mentioning this point, that the Chaitanya Bhagavat has thousands and thousands of verses more than the Chaitanya Charitamrita. We see Chaitanya Charitamrita itself is voluminous. Adi, Madhya and Antya. To finish the whole of Adi, Madhya and Antya and to understand the whole scripture, that itself is a lifetime's effort. Probably lifetime's effort, not even one lifetime. So what to speak of writing a book which has more verses than Chaitanya Charitamrita? That was Vrindavan Das Thakur. And all this in his late 20s or early 30s. And the question that arises is, how did he do it? Who was Vrindavan Das Thakur? Because without being empowered, no one can write. At least speaking for myself, I cannot compose even one verse. But Vrindavan Das Thakur in his late 20s writes so many verses. How is that even possible? And who is Vrindavan Das Thakur? And very beautifully it describes Krishna Leela Bhagavat Kahe Vedavyas Chaitanya Leela Ravyas Vrindavana Das. Who wrote Krishna Leela? Krishna Leela Bhagavat Kahe Vedavyas. Vyasadeva wrote Krishna Leela. But when the question arose of who will write the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that same Vyasadeva who wrote Bhagavatam again came down as Vrindavan Das Thakur to write Chaitanya Bhagavat. So Vrindavan Das Thakur is not a normal personality. He's not a layman who's just walking on the street. No. Vrindavan Das Thakur is Vyasadeva himself, the same author of Srimad Bhagavatam. Manushya rachite nare aiche granta dhanya Vrindavana dasa mukhe vakta Shri Chaitanya. Manushya rachite nare aiche granta dhanya. Such a scripture like Chaitanya Bhagavat cannot be composed by normal people. It is not composed by normal one. Manushya rachite nare aiche grantha dhanya. Vrindavana Das Mukhe Vakta Sri Chaitanya. It externally seems that Vrindavan Das Thakur is speaking, but the person who's empowering Vrindavan Das Thakur to speak is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Vrindavana Das Mukhe, Vrindavan Das Thakur is just like the mic, but the person speaking through the mic is Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So it's not surprising that it is Vyasadeva who has written this epic Chaitanya Bhagavat. So even before Chaitanya Charitamrita came into existence, these books were already there, but there was still something missing. Swarup Damodar Goswami had written his book. Murari Gupta has written his book. Lochan Das Thakur has written Chaitanya Mangal. Vrindavan Das Thakur has written Chaitanya Bhagavat. But there was something, some points that were still not addressed, that needed someone to shed light on. And these pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu, they are so blissful. They give so much happiness to the heart. Once, we see in the land of Navadvip, it's called as Navadvip. Nava means 9 and Dvipa means islands. Of course, this is one interpretation. There are, of course, many interpretations to the name Navadvip. But one common, prominent interpretation is Nava means 9 and Dvipa means island. So in the land of Navadvip, there are many Dvips. Modadruma Dvip, Janu Dvip, Ritu Dvip, Godruma Dvip. Godruma Dvip is the place where Sachidananda Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur did bhajan throughout his life. So there are various places. And one such Dvip in the 9 islands is Madhya Dvip. Madhya Dvip. And to the south of Madhya Dvip, there flows a river by the name Gomati. And in this place, near the Gomati River, in the land of Madhya Dvip, there is a very beautiful place called as Naimasharanya. Now, dear devotees, there is one Naimasharanya where Suta Goswami spoke to Shavanakadi Rishi. That's a different Naimasharanya. But in the land of Navadvip, in Madhya Dvip, there is a separate place called as Naimasharanya. So just like Krishna in Vrindavan is the Mool Roop, he's the main personality, and everyone else are expansions. Similarly, Krishna's place, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Navadvip, is the main place. Remaining all other places are expansions. The actual Naimasharanya is in Madhya Dvip. And when Suta Goswami spoke to Shavanakadi Rishi, that's an expansion of Navadvip. That's an expansion of Naimasharanya. But the real Naimasharanya is here in Madhya Dvip. So in this place of Naimasharanya, Gaur Bhagavat was going on. In that Naimasharanya, Srimad Bhagavatam was going on. But in this Naimasharanya, in the land of Madhya Dvip, Gaur Bhagavat was going on, which means the glories of Sachidananda Gauranga Mahaprabhu was being chanted, was being narrated. Gaur Katha was being going on for 7 days and 7 nights. And this news, it reached the ear of Lord Shiva, Mahadev. Mahadev heard that, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes are being sung here in Naimasharanya. I have to go. I have to go. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's glories are being sung. My Lord's glories are being sung. I have to run. And Lord Shiva, without a second thought, he just sat on his order carrier, that is Nandi, the bull, and started going. As fast as possible, he was marching his way towards Naimasharanya. But midway, Lord Shiva understood that the Nandi, for some purpose, was very slow, was not running very fast. So Lord Shiva thought to himself that, wait a minute, if this is the speed in which I go, by the time I go, it will be Mahaprasade Govinde, the Katha will be over, and all my efforts will be futile. So he just, he parks his Nandi to the side and he runs to Lord Brahma. He said, oh, Brahmaji. Brahma says, what happened? What do you want from me? And Lord Shiva tells Brahmaji that Gaur Katha is being going on. Gaur Katha is being chanted. Brahma says, Gaur Katha, where? Who is chanting Gaur Katha? He says, oh, in Naimisharanya, in the place of Madhyadvip, there Gaur Katha is being chanted. So can you give me your swan? Because Brahmaji travels in a swan, the order carrier. Lord Shiva says that my order carrier, Nandi, is very slow today. I don't know why. But your order carrier is fast. It has wings. So if I sit on your order carrier, the swan, I can fly my way to the Naimisharanya of Madhyadvip and I can sit and hear Gaur Katha. So when Brahmaji hears this, he says, sure, Shubhasya Shigram, go fast, don't delay, do it right now. So Brahmaji, he gives his order carrier and Lord Shiva sits on that order carrier and he flies his way to Naimisharanya. And when he reaches there, he sits behind and very submissively with his eyes closed, teaching all of us the right mood to hear the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with full enthusiasm. Lord Shiva is sitting behind, and not just him, he is accompanied by all his associates. Those associates of Lord Shiva who are always around him, they also come to hear the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But the question arises, who is the speaker? And who were the audience? For whom was this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's katha being spoken? And Bhaktivinoda Thakur very beautifully in the Navadvip Dham Mahatmya, he says that the speaker was none other than Suta Goswami. And the audience were none other than Shaunakadi Rishi. The same speaker and the same audience who happened to speak and hear Bhagavatam. Because we know Suta Goswami was present in the audience when Shukadev Goswami spoke to Parikshit Maharaj. And later Suta Goswami goes to Naimisharanya and Yatharu, as it is, he gives it to Shaunakadi Rishi. Similarly, that same Suta Goswami ends up speaking Gaur Bhagavat for 7 days and 7 nights to Shaunakadi Rishi. And behind was Lord Shiva, very eagerly sitting and hearing with all his associates. This comes in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. And this story is said personally by Nityananda Prabhu. When Nityananda Prabhu takes Jiva Goswami for Navadvip Mandal Parikrama, and when they come to this place, Nityananda Prabhu personally, he says this story. And when Jiva Goswami hears this, Jiva Goswami is ecstatic. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur describes that Jiva Goswami starts rolling on the ground, chanting Gaura, 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 thinking about the glories of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as to how even Lord Shiva can leave his Kailash and come to Naimisharanya to hear the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So in this way, we find the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are so enriching and so enlivening that whoever we are, wherever we are from, whatever our background is, pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu are something that one cannot resist from hearing. Even if one is Lord Shiva, still he will leave his Kailash and come to hear the pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. So now Kaviraj Goswami is thinking to himself, how can I describe the pastimes of that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Vrindavan Das Thakur is qualified. Lochan Das Thakur is qualified. Swarup Damodar and Murari Gupta, they are qualified. But how can I compose? Who am I in comparison to them? Of course, this is Kaviraj Goswami's humility. Actually, he is very, very much qualified. He's overqualified. But the quality of a pure Vaishnava is, they always think that they are not qualified. So here we find Kaviraj Goswami is expressing his inability, is expressing his humility and thinking as to how he can even write these beautiful pastimes of Gauranga Mahaprabhu. And in this endeavor, Kaviraj Goswami very beautifully in the Chaitanya Charitamrita itself, he expresses his humility. He says, Vaigunya Kita Kalitam Paishunya Vrinapiditam Dainyarnave Nivagnoham Chaitanyam Vaidyamashraya. Kaviraj Goswami says, Vaigunya Kita Kalitam. Kita means germs. He's saying, oh, I am being bitten by the germs of material desires. Kaviraj Goswami is saying. Vaigunya Kita Kalitam Paishunya Vrinapiditam, and I am having boils of envy in my body. It's just a poetic way of expressing. He's saying, Vaigunya Kita Kalitam Paishunya Vrinapiditam. I am having material desires in my heart. I am having boils of envy. Dainyarnave Nivagnoham. But still, I fall at the feet of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Why? Chaitanya Vaidyam Ashraya, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the eternal doctor. He's saying, I am having envy. I am having material desires in my heart, but I know Gauranga Mahaprabhu is the eternal doctor. So if I pray and I fall at his feet, probably he will give me some Shakti. Probably he will infuse my heart with Bhakti Shakti. And only then can I write something. So we find it's not just in Antilila, this section, that Kaviraj Goswami is expressing his humility, but throughout Adi, Madhya and Antya. Even in the start of Madhya Lila, we find Kaviraj Goswami, time and again, he expresses his humility and his inability to write the scripture. But here, Kaviraj Goswami, he says that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the eternal doctor. If the doctor showers his mercy, then probably my disease can be cured. So we find that when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present in this world, there were various associates who served Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Govinda was one such associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who was always in and around Gauranga Mahaprabhu. But still, if there was one person who had the maximum association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, it was Shripad Raghunath Das Goswami. Shripad Raghunath Das Goswami served Gauranga Mahaprabhu for 16 years, 1-6. For 16 years, he served Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. No one had the good fortune of serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for such a long time. Even Rupa and Sanatan, they did not have the good fortune of serving Gauranga Mahaprabhu for 16 years. But Shripad Raghunath Das Goswami, he was always around Gauranga Mahaprabhu, taking care of Gauranga Mahaprabhu's needs. And now naturally, when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu departed from this world, it was a thunderbolt to the heart of Shripad Raghunath Das Goswami. Because just imagine that person with whom you have been there 24/7 for 16 years. And that person is not a normal person. He is Gauranga Mahaprabhu himself. Radha and Krishna combined. And now if Radha and Krishna, all of a sudden they disappear, they vanish from your material vision, how difficult it will be to bear it. So Raghunath Das Goswami, it was too much for him to handle. But thankfully, Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami was still present in this world. So he took shelter of Srila Swarup Damodar Goswami. But when Swarup Damodar Goswami also departed this world, this was too much for Raghunath Das Goswami. Because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had gone, Swarup Damodar Goswami had gone, Raghunath Das Goswami thought to himself, why am I even living? What is the need to live? When my lords, Swarup Damodar Goswami and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu have departed this world, why am I even supposed to live? So Raghunath Das Goswami decides to walk to Vrindavan. Why? To climb to the top of Giriraj and jump from Giriraj to give up his life, to commit suicide. Raghunath Das Goswami, in that endeavor, he comes to Giriraj to climb up. But by the Supreme Lord's arrangement, Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami, they intercept Raghunath Das Goswami. And they ask Raghunath Das Goswami about his plans. And when Raghunath Das Goswami says that, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not there, Swarup Damodar Goswami is not there, I want to jump from the top of Giriraj. I want to climb on top of Giriraj and jump from the top of Giriraj. Shunyaite Mahaghoram Girindro Ajgrayate Vyagratundayate Kundam Jivatu Rahitasya me. Raghunath Das Goswami says that Shunyaite Mahaghoram, both these personalities have left. Shunyaite Mahaghoram, everything seems void. Everything seems null and void. Everything seems zero to me. Nothing seems to make sense. Because we find that Um, Only if there is a 1 that precedes 0, it becomes a 10. But if there is no 1, then there is no purpose of that 0. Similarly, that 1 is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu for Raghunath Das Goswami. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Swarup Damodar Goswami are like that 1. Now that they have departed from this world, for Raghunath Das Goswami, everything is null and void. It doesn't make sense. Shunyaite Mahagoram Girindro Ajgarayate. And he says, oh, Giriraj. Giriraj is like an Ajgar. Ajgar means a python. Raghunath Das Goswami is saying, oh, Giriraj, it looks like a python to me. Vyagra Tundayate Kundam. And this Kunda, which means Radha Kund, this Radha Kund seems like the open mouth of a tiger, ready to devour and kill me. You see, nothing is making sense for Raghunath Das Goswami. It's like broken pieces of puzzle. The puzzle pieces are somewhere. When Chaitanya and Nityananda and Swarup Damodar are not present, Raghunath Das Goswami, he seems that there is no purpose for his existence. Jivatu rahitasya me. Oh, now that I am separated from these personalities, why am I even supposed to live? So this was the mood of Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami. But when Rupa and Sanatan, when they met Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami, they convinced him. They told him that, oh, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given you something, is it not? And he said, yes, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given me a Giriraj. He has given me a Giriraj Shila and he has given me Gunjamala. So that is the point we see Rupa Goswami. He tells Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami that you go to Radha Kund because Gunjamala represents Radha Kund. Now this question arises. Many times we have heard that Gunjamala means Radha Kund. Gunjamala means Srimati Radharani. Why is the comparison made? Why is Gunjamala compared to Radharani? Because we find Rupa Goswami is giving the instruction to Das Goswami to go to Radha Kund because of Gunjamala. But the question still arises, why is Gunjamala compared to Srimati Radharani? And to understand this, we have to again take shelter of Raghunath Das Goswami. It was the day of Diwali, the month of Kartik. It was the day of Deepavali. And Krishna was in Nanda Bhavan. And Krishna was there with his beautiful 2 small calves. And Krishna was playing with his calves. Krishna was still chotu. He was still small. He was playing with his calves. And the parrot, Krishna's dear parrot, the parrot came to Krishna and said that, oh, in Giriraj, in Govardhan, Radharani and her Sakhis, they are stringing pearls. They are stringing pearls. So why don't you go there? Probably they can give some pearls to you also. So why don't you go there to Radharani and ask for some pearls? So Krishna said, fair enough, that's a good idea. And Krishna decided to go to Giriraj with both his cows. One cow this side, one calf this side, another calf this side. Krishna decided to walk. Krishna was like nicely chubby boy with 2 chubby calves. Krishna was walking. And Krishna reached Giriraj. He reached Govardhan. And when he reached Govardhan, he met Srimati Radharani. And when he met Srimati Radharani, he said that, oh, you're stringing pearls? Radharani said, yes, I am stringing pearls. And at that time, Krishna said, can you give me some pearls? I want to decorate my 2 calves. Radharani said, you want to decorate 2 calves with these pearls? Don't you understand these pearls are so expensive and you want to use them on your calves? Krishna said, give me some pearls. If not for the calf, I will at least decorate their horns. Give me some little pearls. I want to decorate their beautiful 2 small horns. And when Krishna said this, Lalita Sakhi came forward. Lalita Sakhi is always ready to, very bold. Radharani is sometimes bold and sometimes shant, but Lalita Sakhi is always very bold. So Lalita Sakhi comes ahead and very sarcastically, she tells Krishna that, Krishna, your cows are so glorious. Your cows are so great that these pearls are nothing in comparison to your calves and cows. Actually, it's the other way around. The pearls were very expensive. But Lalita Sakhi very sarcastically, she puts it that, Krishna, your calves are so glorious that no pearls of this world can do justice to your calf. And when Lalita Sakhi said like this, everyone understood that this was sarcasm. This is transcendental sarcasm. So we see even sarcasm is there in the spiritual world, but it is transcendental sarcasm. Everything is in connection with Krishna. So when Krishna heard this, Krishna understood that Lalita Sakhi was pulling his leg. And Krishna was the only person there. Lalita Sakhi and Radharani, they were all in one camp, and Krishna here was the only person. So when Krishna understood, Krishna became very angry. And Krishna just stormed out of Giriraj with both his small calves. And he went back to his home, Nanda Mahal. And he went to Maya Yashoda and said, Maya, can you give me some pearls? So Maya Yashoda said, pearls? Why do you want pearls? What will you do with pearls? You're so small. What will you do with pearls? So Krishna said, Maya, if you give me pearls, I will sow the pearls in the ground. And then a beautiful tree will come, which is filled with pearls and rubies and diamonds. When Maya Yashoda heard this, she just laughed and she said, Krishna, doesn't work this way. When you sow a seed, a plant comes out. But it doesn't mean that whatever you sow in the ground, a plant will come out. Krishna, if you sow a pearl plant doesn't come. You sow a mango seed, mango tree may come. Apple seed may come. But that doesn't mean, Krishna, that you sow a pearl and a pearl plant comes out. Krishna says, no, Maya, it will come out. You trust me, you give me, I will do it. Maya Yashoda said, Krishna, nothing doing. I am not going to give you pearls. Pearls are very expensive. You are very small. You will not know how to handle them. And Maya Yashoda was right, because we see generally parents don't give gold and diamonds to like a 2 or 3 year old. They don't know how to use it, and they even don't know the importance of jewels. But Krishna, our Krishna is very adamant. Very adamant. Sometimes he's very adamant. So he was pulling the sari, pulling the pallu of Maya Yashoda and saying, Maya, please give me. I want little pearls. And Maya Yashoda, after some time, because Krishna was not allowing Maya Yashoda to cook, he was constantly just running around. So after some time, Maya Yashoda went inside and from her closet gave some pearls and said, Krishna, take it and do whatever you want. So Krishna took those pearls, and Krishna, he sowed those pearls in the ground. Now, as we know, when we sow seeds, we water them. But Krishna thought to himself, I have sowed pearls, but I will not water them. I will do something very special. He went to the Brajagopis, to the house of the Brajagopis, and said, can you give me some milk from your house? Krishna went door to door and said, can you give me some milk from your house? And they said, why do you want milk? And Krishna said, well, I just sowed a pearl in Nanda Mahal. So to nourish, to water them, I need milk. And the Brajagopis, when they heard it, they just started laughing and said, Krishna, it doesn't work this way. Maya Yashoda would have given you pearls. We are in no mood to give you the milk of our house. We are not going to give you anything. And Krishna, when he heard this, Krishna thought to himself, okay, they are not going to give, but I will go back to my Maya. I will go back to Maya Yashoda and ask for milk. So he comes back to Maya Yashoda and says, Maya, can you give me some milk? And Maya Yashoda says, why do you want milk? What will you now do with milk? Krishna explains the whole scenario. And Maya Yashoda is just laughing, but she still gives. Theek hai, jao, take it. And Krishna, with that milk, he pours that milk on the ground in order to nourish that pearl. Now, dear devotees, can a pearl sprout into a pearl plant? Impossible. Doesn't work. Science, at least according to science, the answer is no. But wherever Krishna is there, science doesn't work. He's Swayam Bhagavan. Krishna can, he can change science 180 degrees. In front of Krishna, all the science doesn't work. All the logic doesn't work. And when Krishna started pouring milk, in 2 to 3 days' time, small buds started coming. Small buds. And in a week's time, a beautiful plant emerged. And that plant was plant was filled with all the different flowers. And in another 2 weeks' time, that plant had pearls in it. That pearl which was sown in the ground was now, there was a pearl plant completely. And when this news reached the Braja Gopis, they were shocked. They thought to themselves, what? Pearl being sown and a pearl plant? How is this even possible? This is not possible. And there, the Braja Gopis, they say that probably it's just exaggeration. Probably it's not a pearl plant, but it is Himsara Lata. Lata basically means a plant, and Himsara means a weed, a poisonous or a creeper. So they say that probably it is some weed that has emerged and not a pearl plant. But when they come and actually see the Braja Gopis and Radharani, they're shocked. And even Maya, Yashoda, they're shocked to see that a pearl plant has emerged. So now Radharani thinks to herself, if Krishna can do it, I can very well do it. We see the same parallels. When Krishna, he dug Shamkund, Radharani came up with her Radhakund. If Krishna can do it, Radharani can very well do it. If Krishna can play the flute, Radharani can play the flute 100 times better than Shri Krishna. She's better than Krishna in everything. If Krishna is a great dancer, Radharani is the greatest dancer. If Krishna is beautiful, Radharani is 10 million times more beautiful. So Radharani thought to herself that if Krishna can do this, I can also do it. So what did Radharani do? She went back to Giriraj and she sowed some pearls that she had. And Radharani thought to herself, Krishna nourished his plant with the milk. I will nourish it with butter and ghee. Radharani thought to herself, so that I get a better plant than Sri Krishna. So sure enough, Radharani nourished that plant with butter and ghee. And within 2 or 3 days, Vishaka Sakhi, she saw that, oh, small bud is coming. So they were very happy that now they can show to Krishna that Krishna, whatever you have done is not very great. Even we can do it. But after a few days, they realized a pearl plant had not come. There was no pearl plant, but it was simply weeds that had come. So Radharani thought to herself, what is this? Krishna did it and Krishna got pearls. I also did the same thing. I nourished it with butter and ghee, but I am not getting pearl plant. I am simply getting some weeds. What is this? But there, our acharyas, they comment that actually the plant that arose from Radharani's watering through butter and ghee was not a pearl plant, but few berries had emerged. And these berries were none other than Gunja berries, dear devotees. What Radharani created from her devotion, she gave rise to Gunja berries. Krishna gave rise to the pearls, but Radharani gave rise to Gunja berries. This is why we say Gunja berries are dear to Srimati Radharani, because Radharani personally manifested Gunja berries. Pearls were always existing in this world. So whatever Krishna did is not very glorious, because pearls were always existing. But what Radharani did, she gave birth to Gunja berries. This is why we say Gunja berries are very dear to Srimati Radharani, and Gunja berries signify Srimati Radharani. So when Gunja berries were given to Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami, this is why we say Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatan Goswami tell Raghunath Das Goswami to go to Radhakund and speak Gaur Katha, because he has had the maximum association of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So when Raghunath Das Goswami hears this instruction, he goes to Radhakund, and every day at Radhakund, he is speaking about the pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And in that audience is Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. So the Chaitanya Charitamrita that we have is the personalized handwritten notes of Kaviraj Goswami from the lectures of Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami that took place 500 years back on the banks of Radhakund. The Chaitanya Charitamrita that we read every day, these verses, these are the handwritten notes from the lectures of Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami. He had personally written all of them down. And Kaviraj Goswami, when he writes this mammoth Chaitanya Charitamrita, Kaviraj Goswami is in his late 80s, very old, so much so that his back is semicircular. His eyes are not even opening. Kaviraj Goswami literally had to use his fingers to open his eyes. That was the situation. But still, for all of us, Kaviraj Goswami, he writes the unheard pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that Vrindavan Das Thakur had not touched upon, especially the pastimes of Gambhira. The pastimes of Gambhira were such that they were not covered in Vrindavan Das Thakur and Lochan Das Thakur's work. But Chaitanya Charitamrita, it sheds light. Kaviraj Goswami sheds light on those ending pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And time and again we see that Kaviraj Goswami, he never takes credit for his writing. Even this Chaitanya Charitamrita, when he writes, he says that, oh, I have not written it. It is Radha Madan Mohan who have written. They have dictated to me and I have simply written it. I am simply like the instrument. They empowered me. They were speaking and I was simply hearing and writing it down. So he gives all the credit to Shri Radha Madan Mohan. And we find that Radha Madan Mohan, Govindaji, Gopinathji, they are the life and soul of the Gaudiyas. Shri Radha Saha Shri Madan Mohan, Shri Radha Saha Shri Govinda Charan, Shri Radha Saha Shri Gopinath, Ei Teen Thakur Hoy Gaudiyara Nath. Kaviraj Goswami says that there are three lords of the Gaudiyas. First Radha Madan Mohan, then Radha Govinda and Gopinathji. Three lords. And he says that it is Madan Mohan who empowered me. It is Madan Mohan who spoke the glories of Gauranga Mahaprabhu to me, and I simply ended up writing it. And we find that this is not the first time that something like this has happened, or this is not the first time that a predecessor Acharya has expressed that the deities have written something. This has happened even in the past. We find that once Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was very old, and there was a conference that was happening in Jaipur, a Gaudiya conference. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was invited for that conference to represent the Gaudiyas. But because Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was so old, he said that, oh, I cannot come. I'm very old. I cannot travel from Vrindavan. I'm very old. So he asked Baladev Vidyabhushan. Of course, at that time, he was Baladev. So he asked Baladev that, Baladev, will you go to Jaipur and represent the Gaudiyas? And Baladev said, sure, if that is your instruction, that is your order, I will do it. I will go to Jaipur and represent the Gaudiyas. So Baladev went. And when he went there, the Ramanandis, they kind of mobbed Baladev and they started posing different arguments. And one such argument was that the Gaudiyas do not have a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. That was their argument. They said that as Gaudiyas, y'all do not have a special commentary, a one-pointed commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And now we know that actually we have a commentary. Sarva Vedanta Saram hi Srimad Bhagavatam Ishyate tad rasamrita triptasya nanyatrata ati kvachit. Srimad Bhagavatam is the commentary to the Vedanta Sutra, as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has described. Srimad Bhagavatam is the natural commentary to this Vedanta Sutra. But now those people, the Ramanandis, they were not ready to accept this. They said, we will not accept all these things. You give us a separate commentary of the Vedanta Sutra. Till the time you don't give us this commentary, we will not accept whatever you're saying, and we will not even accept the bona fide nature of the Gaudiya Sampradaya. So Baladev tried time and again to express the point that Bhagavatam is the naturalized commentary, but the Ramanandis were not ready to accept it. So he came back, Baladev again, he came back, and he was thinking to himself that, what am I supposed to do? How will I prove that Bhagavatam is the natural commentary. But before he came back from Jaipur to Vrindavan, he very emphatically, he gave a word. He challenged the Ramanandis by saying, in 1 week's time, I will write a commentary and I will give it to you all. You all want the commentary, right? I will write the commentary. So the Ramanandis said, okay, we give you time. And they were confident that in 1 week it's impossible because Vedanta Sutra has so many verses, and to write commentary on that is next to impossible work. So they were convinced that this is not possible for him. So he came back and he was praying to Radha Govinda that, my dear Lord, I have promised, I have given my word. Now it is up to you. If you want that your devotee doesn't lose, then you empower me. You do something. I have given my life to you. Now you do something. You protect me. You protect this heritage of the Gaudiyas. So at that time, Govinda, he came in the dream of Baladev and he said, I will speak. I will speak the commentary to the Vedanta Sutra. You just write. You do the work of writing. I will speak. Baladev said, if you are going to speak, there is no question of losing because Bhagavan knows everything. If you are going to write, we don't even require 1 week. Even 24 hours is more than enough if the Supreme Lord is going to speak. So Baladev was very happy. And the next day morning when he got up, the Lord made sure that he fulfilled his promise. Govinda began to speak. The Supreme Lord began to speak and Baladev was writing. And in less than a week, the commentary was finished. And Baladev, he gave this name of the commentary as Govinda Bhashya. He said, I have not written this. Govinda has written it. So this is Govinda Bhashya. These words have emanated straight from the lips of Govinda. And he went and presented Govinda Bhashya to the Ramanandis who were objecting and criticizing and arguing. When they saw this commentary, they were flummoxed. They were completely bewildered. And they thought to himself, how is it that he can write it in less than 1 week? And they fell at the feet of Baladev. And that is when Baladev got the name Baladev Vidyabhushan, because he showed his erudite nature. He showed his power of Vidya by writing Govinda Bhashya in less than a week. So that is when Baladev ended up becoming Baladev Vidyabhushan. And all those Ramanandis who were arguing with Baladev Vidyabhushan, they fell at the feet of Baladev Vidyabhushan, asking to please accept all of them as disciples. They wanted to take initiation. This was the transformation that happened in 1 week. They were begging for initiation. But Baladev Vidyabhushan, he said, no, Baba, I cannot give initiation. I just came here to represent Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. My work is done. Commentary is written. I am going back. And when he came back, he presented this Govinda Bhashya to his deities. And when Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur heard this, Vishwanath Chakravarti was so happy. And from that day, Radha Govinda became Radha Vijay Govind. Why? Because the Supreme Lord Govinda helped Baladev Vidyabhushan to become victorious over the battle with the Ramanandis. So from Radha Govinda, the deities became Radha Vijay Govinda because the Lord helped Baladev Vidyabhushan grant Vijay, victory. So there we find that the Lord personally spoke Govinda Bhashya to Baladev Vidyabhushan. And likewise here also we find Kaviraj Goswami saying, I have not written it. Madan Mohan has written it. Radha Madan Mohan dictated it to me. Oh, I am simply writing it. He doesn't take the credit upon himself. But a very beautiful question now arises. We see that when Bhagavatam was written, we very well know. We know as to when the scripture of Srimad Bhagavatam was written by our predecessor Acharyas. We know that when Suta Goswami, when he spoke this scripture to Shaunaka Rishi, that also very well we know. But in the pages of the Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the Antilila itself, Kaviraj Goswami, he gives a hint as to when he finished his Chaitanya Charitamrita. So I would just like to share my screen. He gives a very beautiful verse to describe the day when he finished the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Can someone confirm the screen is visible?
Yes, Prabhu, it is visible.
So this is the last verse of Antilila. And this is such a hidden, mysterious, unparalleled jewel that Kaviraj Goswami gives to indicate when Chaitanya Charitamrita was finished. Shakhe Sindhu Agni Vanendu Jeshthe Vrindavanantare Surya He Sita Panchamyam Grantoyam Purnatam Gataha. I just stand one more time. Shakhe Sindhu Agni Vanendu Jeshthe Vrindavanantare Surya He Sita Panchamyam Grantoyam Purnatam Gataha. This is the last verse of the Antilila. And he says, Jeshthe, which means in the month of Jeshtha. We see in the Vedic calendar, just like in our Gregorian Western calendar, we have January, February, March, etc. up until December. In the Vedic calendar, we have Chaitra, Vaishak, Jeshtha, Kartik. Kartik month is the last month of the Vedic calendar, denoting the month of Srimati Radharani. So he says, Jeshthe, in the month of Jeshtha, where Vrindavanantare, in the land of Vrindavan, Suryahe, which means the day of the sun, which means Sunday. Sunday means the day of the sun. So Jeshthe, in the month of Jeshtha, in the land of Vrindavan, Suryahe, the day of the sun, Sita Panchamyam, on the 5th day of the dark fortnight, Grantoyam Purnatam Gataha. I, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, has finished this Grantha in the month of Jeshtha, which corresponds to May or June, according to our Western calendar, in the land of Vrindavan, on the day of sun, which means Sunday, on the Sita Panchamyam, which means the 5th day of the dark fortnight, I have finished this scripture. But still, first line is pending. We've finished the last 3 lines. The first line is still pending. And here comes Kaviraj Goswami's brilliance. We see generally verses. How do we read verses? We read them from left to right. Like we see Jeshthe Vrindavanantare, Surya He Sita Panchamyam, Grantoyam Purnatam Gataha. We read it from left to right. That's the traditional nature of reading verses, always from left to right. But this verse is different. The last 3 lines, which means from Jeshthe Vrindavanantare up until Granthoyam Purnatam Gataha, it has to be read from left to right. But the first line is not read from left to right, but is read from right to left. Just like we see in Urdu language, which is used in Saudi Arabia and all those places. They don't write and read from left to right, but it is right to left, the other way around. Similarly, Kaviraj Goswami, he shows his brilliance in this verse by showing us that the first line is read the opposite way, from right to left. But the last 3 lines are read normally, from left to right. So now we start the first line. We go the other way around. The word is Vanendu, or also pronounced as Varendu. This has 2 words in it. First is Vara and second is Indu. So what does Indu mean? We see this word Varendu. It can be split as Vara plus Indu. So what does here Indu mean? Indu basically means a moon. We have moon, Chandradev. So he's also called as Indu. How many moons are there? There is one moon. We see there is only one moon up in the sky. So Indu means moon and moon means 1. So first number is 1. Now we go to the next word, Vara. Now this word Vara has various meanings. One common meaning of Vara means first class. Haridasa, warrior, the best among devotees. But We say these verses, they have multiple meanings. Prati shloke, prati akshare, nana arte kaye, Krishna tulya bhagad, vibhu sarvashroy. Every word, every alphabet has multiple meanings. So here, this word vara does not mean first class. It doesn't mean best. But here the word vara means arrows. We see we have arrows. Here the word means arrows. And here the arrows are not in connection to Sri Ramachandra. It is not Ramachandra's arrows. But here the arrows are in connection to the arrows of Cupid. In connection to Kamadev. The arrows are in connection to Cupid. And we know, it's a known fact that Cupid has 5 arrows. Cupid has 5 arrows in his quiver. What are the 5 arrows? Vision, sense of smell, hearing, taste, and sense of touch. 5 arrows. So here Vara basically means arrows, but the arrows of Cupid. And how many arrows does Cupid have? He has 5 arrows. So here we get the number as 5. So just reiterating the point. Indu means moon. Moon means 1. Then we go to Vara. Vara means arrow. But arrow not of Ramchandra. Arrow of Cupid Mahashay. His arrow. And he has 5 arrows. Vision, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. 5 arrows. When he shoots that arrows, that's when we see people fall in love. They don't rise in love, but they fall in love. So that is Vara. So now till now we have got from Varendu, we have got 1 and 5. Now we go to Agni. What does Agni mean? Agni means fire. And Shastras, they say there are 3 types of Agni. Even fire is classified into 3 types, not one fire. Generally, we see for us, every fire is the same, whether it is the cooking fire or whether it is the fire of a Narshinga Yagya or any fire for us, all the fire is one and the same. But Shastra, it even bifurcates fire into 3 types. There are 3 classifications. I wouldn't get into the details of the 3 types of fire, but just it is good to know, FYI, that Agni Dev, there are 3 classifications, 3 types of fire. So now, Indu means 1, Vara means 5, Agni, which means 3. So till now we have got 1, 5, 3. Now we come to Sindhu. What does Sindhu mean? Ocean. How many oceans are there? We know very famously, it's called as Sapta Sindhu. There are 7 prominent oceans, Sapta Sindhu. So Sindhu here means 7. So Indu means 1, Vara means 5, Agni means 3, Sindhu means 7, which means 1, 5, 3, 7, which means 1537. But when? 1537 of when? Shakhe. 1537 of the Shakha era was when Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed by Kaviraj Goswami. Such a beautiful verse, dear devotees. So mysterious. The last 3 lines are read left to right. But first line is completely topsy-turvy. It is read from right to left. But it doesn't end here. 1537 of the Shakha era, we find, Prabhupada is writing here, in 37 of the Shakha era was when CC was completed. But when does this correspond to our Western calendar? Because we don't understand Shakha era, right? We understand AD. We say 2021, 2020, 2019. We understand AD. But we don't understand Shakha era much. So the researchers, when they researched, they came to this conclusion that 1537 of the Shakha era corresponds to 1615 AD. 1615. 1615 AD. And in precise, Jeshthe, Vrindavanantare, Jeshtha means the month of May, and Suryahe, which means the month of sun. So dear devotees, the precise date when Kaviraj Goswami finished this magnum opus called Chaitanya Charitamrita was 17th of May, 1615 AD. 17th May, 1615 AD was when Chaitanya Charitamrita was completed, which means We are right now in 2021. So 406 years back, Kaviraj Goswami finished the writing of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we find it is such a beautiful verse in such a hidden, mysterious way. Kaviraj Goswami, he shows his brilliance by demonstrating this verse. So we chant this verse and we end our discussion. Shakhe Sindhu Agni Vanendu Jeshte Brindavanantare Surya He Sita Panchamyam Granthoyam Purnatam Gataha Srila Kaviraj Goswami Pada